Art and culture are legacies left by humans. Ancient art with a history of hundreds of years. The real value that it remains in the present age as it was in those days. The designs, techniques, and ideas of artists and craftsmen became a model for people and have been passed down to modern society. These items prove it. We inherit the asset of the world from ancestors and introduce them to everyone and pass on to the next generation. In this video, I will talk about the world-recognized Japanese traditional craft, gold lacquer work. Gold lacquer work is one of the lacquer techniques uniquely developed in Japan. Drawing lines with lacquer on the surface of the vessel, then scattering gold powder before the lacquer dries and forcing it to express a pattern. It started 1200 years ago, and the technology is still being passed down to current craftsmen. The process of making gold lacquer work begins with cutting out the wood that will with the material. First, craftsmen cut the wood to the required size and dry it for a couple of years. Then cut into the desired shape and dry it again another year. And it takes a few years for the 120 steps of the groundwork before gold lacquer work. The groundwork is invisible, but it is a very important process that is the basis of the work. First, coat the surface with lacquer so that it prevents the bare wood absorbing excess water, and cover it with a hand fabric to reinforce the surface. And then apply a mixture of lacquer and finely crushed diatomaceous earth to the entire surface and dry it. When it dries completely, apply black lacquer on it in several times to complete the preparation of the base. And it takes 2 years to complete the dozens of processes of the gold lacquer work. Applying the finish of the work, uwanuri. Finally, sharpening the part of the lacquer work and polishing the entire. It takes a total of nearly 10 years to complete one work. The main reason why it takes several years to complete the work is the property of lacquer. Lacquer hardens by chemical reaction with the moisture in the air. In the case of lacquer, this condition is called drying. Dry in a dedicated room called urushiburo to avoid dust adhesion and maintain humidity. Lacquer requires a long time of several hours to several days to become hardened. And if you apply it thickly at once, the surface will shrink. So you must repeat apply lacquer thinly, dry and sharpen it to gradually thicken it. Therefore, the more layers of lacquer, the longer it will take. In addition, it was extremely difficult to procure the materials such as lacquer and gold, because collecting these materials was all done by hand in those days. Lacquer is refined from the sap of the lacquer tree, which is widely distributed in Asia. It can be collected from only trees that are 10 to 20 years old, but only about 200 grams can be collected from the single tree, which proves to be very valuable. Also, only about 10 grams of gold, which is the main material of gold lacquer work, can be obtained from 1 ton of ore. So, it is necessary to mine a huge amount of ore to prepare the gold for this work. Starting from the preparation of the basic material, all the processes are done with great care without any compromise. This makes it possible to create one and only work of the world. The beautiful gold lacquer work still remains as it was in those days, because craftsmen take the time to carefully carry out the basic process. The work of projecting the natural world and the scene of time into small works was carried out with the help of the sketches of the leading painters. And the leading artists have devised various techniques to express the design. From here, I will introduce the technique of lacquer work. This is a technique of cutting gold leaf into the shapes such as a triangle and a quadrangle and passing it on the gold lacquer work. By applying this technique, an accent added with the design of the lacquer work, and the pattern can be expressed more vividly. This is a technique of scattering a very fine gold powder called nashiji-hun on the lacquered surface and applying transparent lacquer on it and polishing it. The name nashiji or pale skin was given because the finished surface resembles pale skin. This nashiji is particularly elaborate, that scattering gold powder once would not be like this. Scatter gold powder, flatten the surface, apply lacquer, dry and polish, and scatter gold powder again. Repeat the process several times for more than a month, and then this shade is finally completed. Takamakie refers to the technique of laying the base in relief shape with lacquer and apply hiramakie, fast lacquer work. By making the figure three-dimensional, the design of the lacquer work creates a sense of profoundness, reality, and uplifting feeling. In order to create this natural high difference, it is necessary to make exquisite adjustments in both the laying and sharpening processes. It can be said that it is a technique that can be realized only by skilled craftsmen with outstanding skills. This is a technique to make a pattern by carefully arranging hiramehun one by one. This is made by spreading powder thinly, that is created the brilliant with a file. It takes much longer to decorate than the technique of scattering gold powder, but the brilliance of gold is stronger and the appearance is more luxurious. This is a technique of scattering gold powder on the line that do with sticky lacquer on a surface finished with lacquer or mother of pearl. It is used to describe small parts such as wave patterns. It is a proficient skill that needs a precise brush strokes. This is a technique to fit another material on the surface of the work. The surface is dug into the shape of the material to be fitted and fixed with lacquer. Metals, ivory, coral, and etc. are used as materials to change the pattern. This is a technique to fatten the inner part of the shell, cut it into the pattern, and fit it. It has a rainbow-colored luster, and you can enjoy the color change depending on the viewing angle. It gives off a beautiful shine that is a bit different from lacquer work and adds a lustrous impression to the work. It has been hundreds of years since it was made, but the values have been passed down from age to age, such as the technology and spirit that the craftsman at that time put into the work, and the amount of money invested by the client. They stored it carefully so that it would not be cracked and peeled off. The eternal inheritance of all of these works is the highest asset value, unlike any other. In the next video, I will introduce this gold lacquer work. Please take a look.